to whom it may concern, which is you, Ina. Now forgive me for being so bold in writing you a letter, but allow me to ramble, if I may. I am an old man of 67 years old. Now, it may be hard to believe with a face like mine, but I was actually quite young for a human at some point. Yes, quite young. But now I'm old. I've attained wisdom, knowledge, friends in both low and high places, and experiences that I believe make life worth living. At my age, there's only one big surprise left, and I would just as soon leave it a mystery. But when you are blessed to have so many friends, sometimes they tell you stories that can surprise you. 2 friends of mine, which you have met, have told me about you. Their lifespan greatly exceeds mine, but they hold a fondness for me still, and have seen me grow into the old man I am today. I was told that they were reminded of me when I went through my greatest tragedy, when they saw you. I don't know what you've lost. I won't pretend to know. But I know one thing. You are a friend of a friend. That makes you my friend. Again, forgive me for rambling, but long ago I was a soldier, fighting in a war I did not wish to be in. My son Mako fought alongside me. He made the tragedy bearable. I've seen the death of many. We have had to bury friends and people we considered family. I ascended the ranks and my son stayed in the infantry. We talked often as I led his group for a while, but I eventually had to be reassigned due to my tactical abilities being needed elsewhere. Of course, as time goes on, war eventually stops. I was happy to go home. I had still been sending letters to my son, and I was still awaiting his most recent letter. I told him that we'd meet up back at home. I couldn't wait to relax at home, have some tea, and talk with him in person again. People say that your life is over when you have a child, but I truly thought mine was over when I had learned I had lost mine. Illuvian officials came to my house, informing me that my son had died at the age of 24. I had lost everything. Nothing was complete anymore. I was a husk of a man, and now I have to remember him longer than I had known him. When the time came for his funeral, all I could do was sob. My brother, for the first time in a long time, comforted me. It was a rare sign of compassion that he rarely showed. He allowed me to cry my eyes out into his finely upholstered suit, something which he never would have allowed at any other time. When walking up to my son's casket, I saw his face. That smile, so warm and radiant, was gone. A face of peace, yet defeat. I held his hands for what felt like hours, crying and blaming myself for not arguing to stay with him. It should have been me, and that I was a terrible father. I stumbled home. It was so eerily quiet. It made me sick to my stomach to know my boy was not home. Tears left my eyes and met my bed. For months I barely left my home. When I did, it was only to eat. I'm thankful I didn't pick up drinking, but that doesn't mean I didn't get into an unhealthy lifestyle. I put on weight as I ate so often due to my stress being at an all-time high. It was a true low point for me. My hair was balding already and graying already too, but the process only went faster. I left my home, and I told nobody. I decided that my son would not want me to be unhappy that he was gone. He would want me to cherish his memory. I will see the world for him, so he can be happy beyond the grave too. So I traveled all of Neximus that I could until I felt I was happy again. I learned many things from many travelers during that time. My first stop was in the Breeze Guild. I had heard many things about their rich culture and food. I wished to experience it. I learned from the common folk that life should be enjoyed, not dreaded. Life should be like a meal full of flavor and experience. Even when there's a bitterness to life, that is not always the constant. The sweetness will come back in time. You just have to let it cook. I traveled through Enchantum, learning ways of meditation from their vast amount of magic casters. This form of meditation really assisted with my minor connection to the weave and alleviated a lot of my anxiety. I met with a few archmages in my time, which taught me some valuable life lessons they had learned over the years. My most important takeaway was this: much like the weave, we as mortals have things that we cannot control. We should not blame ourselves due to a wild magic surge. Sometimes, bad days are just that, days that are bad. I went to Saxum to look at its mountain range and marvel at its beauty. As I traveled along its countryside, I met some traveling bards. They allowed me to join in their escapades. They seemed so at ease and carefree with the world. I just had to ask them how they were doing it, how they kept up with the stresses of life. Their lead explained it to me in the best way that I could have possibly heard it. In order to be carefree, you have to really pay attention to life. Having the good with the bad is important, but finding ways to make the good better is way more important than making the bad worse. For example, our week was pretty boring until we picked you up. Living in the moment is what matters, not worrying about the past or the future, just being, you know. And from that day forward, I did know. They had dropped me off around Quartzdale. I decided that I'd use my gold to ride on a boat home. As the sun set on the boat ride, I looked towards the horizon, watching as the dolphins leaped in the air as we passed. Whales swam on with their children. I felt at ease. During the time I was on this trip, I had a locket made with my son's portrait in it. I had opened it up whenever I was experiencing something that I thought he'd like to see. And once again, I opened it and watched the sun go down with my son. The warmth and the radiance of it all was as if he was smiling at me once again. We got back home, the place being dusty and unkempt. The quiet was not much of a bother anymore, as we had spent so many nights together in silence all the way across Neximus. A 1.5 year long journey that had come to a lovely end. With a journey coming to an end, a new one was fresh arriving. But that's a story for another day. I've wasted a lot of paper space, so excuse me. I probably could have explained it better, but if you feel you're missing something, it's best to not stay stagnant. Keep moving, keep persisting, and keep experiencing. That is how we grow. Sorry for talking so much. I'll leave you to it. With kind regards, Ardavan